I was in China for 17 years.
So now you're a YouTuber.
I'm a YouTuber.
Yeah.
But definitely a really interesting chapter in my life. I was trained as a lawyer, but God, I was the worst lawyer in the world. So the work that I do is finding that $200 a night hotel that's better than the $1,000 a night hotel, and they exist. It's super hard to find, but they're out there. Our goal is to be the most trusted resource for boutique hotels. And we're not trying to be everything to everybody. We're just trying to be for people who like cool boutique hotels, design hotels, Airbnbs that are unique and different. Like every place I've gone, I found at least one.
What's up, everybody? Welcome again to the Seattle Living and Wealth Building Show. I am super excited about today's podcast. Last month was all about building wealth through real estate investing. Today's podcast is all about living your best life. So this guest needs no introduction. Let the tape roll.
Hey, I'm Don, and I love to travel, especially if I end up at a great hotel. I've stayed at some fantastic hotels and resorts in my life. This place is unbelievable. But sometimes I've been super disappointed. I started this channel because there's just too many boring, cookie cutter, just plain blah hotels in the world. I want to help people find hotels and resorts that can make their trip feel really special. Places that inspire, places that surprise, places that are unforgettable. This is the coolest hotel room I've ever stayed in. So what am I looking for in a great hotel? Looking for a boutique experience, something that's independently owned. You know, sometimes it's the details that make all the difference, like dramatic lighting, quirky art, great architecture, great interior design. I also want to show people that it's possible to travel more sustainably. Screen door, you can sleep without the air conditioning, thank you. We don't take payments from hotels, we don't take sponsorships. Our reviews are 100% objective. We only recommend the best ones. I've been to some great resorts around the world, and this has to be in the top 5. This channel is not just for people with a lot of money. We're going to be covering high-end resorts for sure, but I don't think a place has to be really expensive to be really good. That sounds super cheesy, but this place is whimsical. Our hotel reviews are entertaining, at least I think they are. But they're also designed to help people make good decisions about where they're going to stay. Is this the right place for you, for your family? Does this look like it's fun? If you're into the Sheraton or the Hilton, this is probably not the right channel for you. But if you're looking for something more unique, something quirky, surprising, if you're looking for that vibe that is so hard to describe sometimes, but you know it when you see it, then we probably have something for you.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show, Don.
Thanks for having me, Maynard.
Well, this is perfect timing. Summer's around the corner. If you haven't figured out your travel plans, you might figure them out right here. So tell us how you got here. Give us a little bit of background and how you got to start the Swank Guide.
Oh, God. That could be a 15-second answer. It could be a 5-minute answer. Which one do you want?
How about in between? There we go.
In between. Okay. Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of my history. I am a serial entrepreneur. I was trained as a lawyer, but God, I was the worst lawyer in the world. So I quit that after 11 months. I actually moved to Hong Kong right after law school and worked as a lawyer, but got a job in the power industry in China, moved up to Beijing. And I was in Beijing for 5 years, working in the power industry, moved to Shanghai. I was in Shanghai for 11 years. But when I was in Shanghai, I started my own company around basically sustainable energy and spent 10 years building that. So I was in China for 17 years. I was just telling one of these guys that, China is an interesting place, lots of opportunity and is interesting and dynamic, but a hard place to live at the same time. So, but definitely a really interesting chapter in my life. But after exiting from my first company, I had always wanted to be an architect.
Makes sense.
And I don't know, my parents talked me out of it. I don't know. I think people said you don't make money as an architect and blah, blah, blah. But in my early 40s, I decided to go to architecture school. Moved to Sydney, Australia, and got a year into that, and you guys are going to just think I'm like a big quitter now because I keep quitting things. But I did it for a year and just realized I was too old and too stubborn to be a student again. So I did some consulting for my old company, stayed in Sydney, finally kind of decided it was time to get back to the States. Had two kind of young kids, and we wanted to bring them back here at some point anyway. So moved to Seattle 9-ish years ago. This guy helped me find the house we're in Madrona, which we love.
Yeah.
So that's how I know Maynard. And yeah, and then when I moved here, it's like I didn't want to be an architect, or at least I didn't want to be an architecture student. But I was itching to do something different. My kind of background was in sustainability. So I co-founded a company called Node, which is now Green Canopy Node, which I think a lot of real estate agents in Seattle know. But it was Node and Green Canopy now. Green Canopy Node is a housing technology company. So how do you radically simplify construction, right? We have housing shortages up and down the West Coast, all on the East Coast, right? There's just not enough construction trades. So what Green Canopy Node is doing is building a system for housing. And the best analogy is kind of thinking about IKEA. It's a flat pack system that goes together relatively easily. I know there's been a lot of marriages kind of broken up over IKEA furniture, but that's the idea. It's like, how do you actually create a system for housing where you don't need to be a plumber or electrician to put that together anymore? So that's going strong and doing really well. I sit on the board of that. But when we merged about a year ago, I like to start things. I'm a 0 to 1 guy. But once we've gotten to a certain level of operations, you really don't need me anymore. In fact, you don't want me around.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my opportunity to go do something different. And I think what I said to myself is, I don't want to be behind a computer all day. I don't want to ask investors for money anymore. I want to be able to travel. I want to do something that kind of sparks my passion. So that's when I started the Swank Guide. And that was all kind of born out of, going for 20 years, I like a nice resort. I do. When I go on vacation, I want to stay someplace really cool. And like we said in the video, it doesn't have to be expensive, but it does have to be interesting, good design, great location. And like 70% of the time, I was really happy with the places I booked. And I had a few websites that I kind of trusted, but like 30%, maybe 40% of the time, I would be like, what is this? And I thought about that for 20 years. I was like, why aren't there video tours of hotels so people can really know what they're going to get, right? Because you can fly halfway around the world. You pay for this thing in advance. And if you don't like it, you're stuck. You're stuck for a week. You're not going to get your money back. So it just makes sense to me that I think people ought to be able to see what they're going to get before they buy it. So that was kind of the genesis of the channel. And so we've got a website, swankguide.com, SWANKGUIDE.com. And then if you go on YouTube, all our videos are on our website, but they're also on YouTube. And just search for Swank Guide. And, we've kind of branched out now into, we do videos also about kind of what to do in. So what to do in Tulum, what to do in Jamaica. But it tends not to be, it's not TripAdvisor top 10. It's more like hidden gems, stuff that most people don't know about. We work with a local guide so we can get local insight into kind of the places we're giving advice on. I don't think foreigners should show up for 2 weeks and tell you all about the country they just showed up in. It's probably better to have a local perspective on things. And then we've also branched into Airbnbs as well. So doing like exceptional Airbnbs, not like kind of an average one, but there are super cool Airbnbs out there. So short-term rentals are kind of getting into the mix now too. Because some people don't like hotels, and depends on the trip. If you're going with 10 people, then Airbnb might be a better option. So that's kind of how I got into this business.
Amazing. So now you're a YouTuber.
Now I'm a YouTuber. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. Did you ever think that would be that'd be the case?
No, no, I didn't. And I have to be honest with you. I was, when I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to do next, I had a little bit of angst around doing something like that, because I think it's both, you're really putting yourself out there. And I had never been in front of a camera before. I'd never been behind a camera. I knew zero about any of this stuff. So that's a little bit scary, but I also, with my background kind of in sustainability, I guess I felt like it was a little bit self-indulgent, that I was going to kind of scratch an itch that I had, but was I really helping the world? And I don't know if I am, to be honest with you. I think I am helping people find kind of cool, unique places. There is a sustainability message in all our videos. We travel carbon neutral, so we buy carbon offsets whenever we fly. So, as individuals, at least in the Western world, kind of our biggest carbon emissions are from flying. And it's relatively cheap and easy to offset those carbon emissions by literally like a trip to Europe a carbon offset might be a couple $100.
Wow.
But in the context of the whole trip, you're probably talking about 1 or 2% of the cost of the trip. So why not do it? So we try to kind of message that way as well. But no, I never thought I was going to be on YouTube. If you asked me a few years ago, no. So it's a new thing.
I think that's interesting though, because I think that, I'm in my, I still could say mid-30s, closer to late 30s, but
I was thinking 20s.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. I was waiting for it. Maynard didn't give it to me, but Maynard looks like he's 32. So anyways, but, I think that, people are coming around to social media as not just being, something for teenagers, and that it is a really useful tool.
Yep.
And I have a million questions for you, because I think your path is, surprisingly common when you talk to entrepreneurs. You've kind of gone a roundabout way to find where you're at right now. And I'm sure you've enjoyed what you've done along the way. But like you said, you're surprised almost of, oh, wow, this is what I'm doing. And, the travel industry and writing about travel and travel blogging videos become, this massive space on Instagram and YouTube. And I'd say, obviously, you've taken it to another level beyond being like a travel blogger. Your business background, starting from law, then going into business, and then sustainable energy. How is this a viable business at this point with Swank? Or, because if you're not, the question is, if you're not getting any funds from hotels or any paid sponsorship, you're still traveling, and then you're doing this awesome thing by buying a carbon offset. Yeah. Is it pay per click? Because I think a lot of people are envious of what you're doing right now. They want to do the same thing.
I mean, it's funny you say that, because every time I meet somebody new and they're like, what do you do? And I tell them, like, oh my God, that sounds so fun.
Right.
And it is.
And how do I do that?
In a lot of ways. So there's kind of a two-part answer there. We have a business model and we are moving in that direction, but we are, expenditures far exceed income at the moment. And then we have a few income streams, and they're starting to grow. But I see a clear path towards making money out of this, because it's super expensive.
Right.
The flights, but the hotels are what really kills you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But we do have a business model, and I'm pretty confident we'll get there, and it's going to make business sense at the end of the day. But then the part about people envying you and like what you do, I love what I do. I love the travel part of it. I love being like in the hotels, in the Airbnbs, kind of making, shooting. I like the kind of editing and production part of it as well. And I do have an editor in South Africa who helps me. So I don't do much of the editing. I put it all together and I write all the scripts. But I guess what I'm getting at is and this is part of entrepreneurship as well. I think to be an entrepreneur, you have to be naive to a degree. And every venture I've ever been involved in, I vastly underestimated the amount of work that you needed to do to make the thing happen. And this is another case in point that it is just tons of work that you never imagined it would be. It's like, how hard can it be to go and to a hotel and take out your camera and take some shots and put it together? It's not hard, actually. But to make a good video that people will click on, that's hard. I mean, there's so much noise, obviously, in the social media world that it's super hard to break through. And but I think the really hard thing is making a video that's both entertaining and informative at the same time. Yeah, it's easy to make an informative video, but nobody really wants to watch them. Yeah,
your
how do you do both things? Oh, well,
sure.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, 10 minutes. Did you find that's the sweet spot maybe for?
It kind of depends, but I do. The old quote that it's sorry, I didn't have time to write you a shorter letter. And that's been attributed to a few people, but yeah, it takes time. It takes more time to make a short video than to make a long video, because you have to make a lot of editorial decisions, obviously, to make something that moves quickly. But yeah, I think we find the sweet spot to be between 6 and 15. So 15 might be more like a travel vlog. Like I did a week in Iceland on a photo expedition, and it was like my whole week, day by day. I can't do that in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's more like that's the example of like the longest video. But like typical, like a small hotel, yeah, 5 or 6 minutes should be plenty. So it kind of depends on the content. But yeah, I mean, I think our sweet spot's generally 6 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I find amazing is I remember when, I mean, Node, you're talking about exiting out of that and merging with Green Canopy and getting on the board, and then you're trying to figure out what you're going to do. Yeah. And then suddenly you're like, hey, I'm going to start a travel guide. Called me, interviewed me, asked what my pain points were in the interview, when I travel, what websites I use, how I figure out where to travel. And then next, 6 months later, he's got a business.
Right. So. It's amazing.
And then he sent me an email and says, here's to putting yourself out there. And that was April 2022 last year. So here we are. I think you've got like 267 videos or something like that.
That's a lot of those are shorts. So yeah, but probably getting close to 100 long form videos. Yeah.
I mean, I find that amazing. That's just about going all in, deciding what you're going to do, and then just going for it.
Yeah. Well, no, I appreciate that. And it's definitely, and I think, it's another kind of part of entrepreneurship is putting out the kind of minimum viable product. And that's what my early videos are.
Got to start,
they're not
right?
Great, but you got to start to learn, and a lot of people on YouTube, some of the YouTube experts say, well, you got to make 100 videos before you really can make a good one.
Did you watch our first podcast?
I did not, but maybe I should go back and.
It was awesome.
I bet it was.
Yeah, just we're more awesome now.
Yeah. Same with my videos. They're all awesome, just more awesome now. So, so what were we talking about? It takes a minute, but I think you got to get out there, and I think it's just human nature to postpone and think about it and plan. And you got to do both. I mean, when we sat down, I hadn't launched yet, and I was still kind of trying to figure out what the business model was and what we were going to do. And so I was doing research. I was talking to people. Do people even want this? Do people even need it? So that's part of the process, but you should only do that for so long. Mm-hmm. And once you figure, if you think, there's probably a path here. Every business I've ever started or been involved in has gone like this. It's just like twists and turns, and it's never what you think it's going to be. So don't spend too much time trying to figure it out, because you're going to be wrong. No matter if you spend 2 years thinking about it, you're going to be wrong.
Yeah, and you're going to be late. Right, you're going to be late. Someone else would have done it already, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So definitely, I just kind of got into it, and I'm still right now, kind of being like, I'm taking the summer off to not sit around the pool and drink beer. I'd love to do that, but that's not what I'm going to do. But not travel. I'm just going to do the Pacific Northwest, but that's easy. I can get in my car and go someplace for a couple of days. I'm sorry, my phone's ringing. And try to regroup and think about how can I make my videos better? What are just kind of what is kind of the path for the next year and a half? And I kind of did that last summer as well, and I think we took it up a level, and it's kind of the plan to do that this summer as well. But then I hit the road in earnest in September when the weather gets crappy and
enjoy what we have here while it's peak travel time.
It's not a coincidence that I'm not leaving the Pacific Northwest in the summertime.
Yeah.
Don, I'm curious. So you were saying that roughly 30-40% of the places that you stayed, you've been like, what the heck is this? I mean, obviously you're promoting these properties that are standouts and unique. And I mean, I love the name Swank Guide, because I mean, that tells exactly what you're kind of getting yourself into. You're looking for swanky stuff that's really unique and stands out. What are you doing with those 30 to 40% of properties that you go to And are you filming content there still?
He's got another YouTube channel called The Crap Guy.
Yeah, The Crap Guy, exactly.
Yeah, I've thought about that. I have yet to do a negative review because my assumption is people don't want to watch me complain for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I do have a funny story about that. So that was my experience before the Swank Guide, that I would be disappointed 30 or 40% of the time. I think I've gotten a lot smarter about kind of really doing more research, and I've got more resources now, and I spend a lot more time. Before you're kind of planning a vacation and you're working 60 hours a week. How much time do you have to research? Well, this is part of my job now, is to research and look at.
You're not looking at TripAdvisor I
am not looking at. Well, that's the place to go if you want to get confused.
Sure.
Because you're going to get everyone's opinion.
Oh yeah, all the opinions ranging from all different walks of life, right?
So, that's the antithesis of what we are. We're like, we've got very clear views about what we think is good, and.
So other than going to Swank Guide, obviously we'd love everyone to go there and take the advice for what it is. How do you go about researching stuff now? Without using something like TripAdvisor, what can people learn from this? Yeah,
so I've got, I would say like 8 websites, and it's like, I'm going to plug myself. We are the only kind of video experience out there that goes to a place and does curation. So we go and look at literally 30 hotels. We'll drive around and look at them all. And that's kind of part of the evolution and learning, like what are the best places to stay at. And then we test drive them. So we're really the only service in the world that I know of that actually does that for people. But you're asking about the process. Well, so I use different websites that I trust. But like I said, I've trusted those years before, and I was sometimes just disappointed. But I triangulate now. So I've got a bunch of different resources. I look at reviews. So I spend a lot more time looking at guest reviews and things like that, and which is a rabbit hole. But I spend some time doing that. I look at videos. That's helpful. There's a lot of hotels that have videos about them, and then a lot of them are super bad. But at least you can start to get a sense. But up until my last trip, I was still being disappointed like 10% of the time. And I would just like, screw it. I literally was in a hotel in Tulum, and I was there for like 5 minutes. And I was like, no, this is like, I can't make a video about this. It's just not, it didn't look like the website. Surprise, surprise, right? That happens. And I was like, you guys, I'm sorry. This is not what I expected. It doesn't look like the website. And they're like, well, too bad. It's like they had my money and I was
$750. Tulum is not cheap.
Yeah. So, and then what I'm doing now, what I'm starting to do is, and this is painful, but God, it's even more painful to pay $1,000 and be disappointed. And that happened to me in Jamaica. And I think I might make a video about that. I haven't decided yet, but, I won't go into it, but I was like, what is this? Yeah. So what I'm doing now is I'm going for a week, looking at literally like a short list of 20 or 30 hotels, and I'm only going to go to the ones. So I'm going to go, and then I'm going to come back.
You're not pre-booking.
I'm not pre-booking.
Yeah.
And I'll go check them all out. And it's kind of like, feels like a wasted trip. And I will stay at 2 or 3 hotels when I'm there, the ones that I'm most confident in. So at least I can, because I need a place to stay anyway. So might as well do that. But then I'm going to go look at all the other ones and stop wasting my time. Because it's not only you lose the money, you lose 2 days.
So you're not checking out these hotels and staying at a Motel 6.
No, and that's what a lot of people do too. I mean, it's like, it's one of the wild things about YouTube is there are so many hotel recommendation channels from people who have not only have they not been to the hotel, they haven't even been to the country.
Really?
All they've done is taken pictures off a website or stolen somebody's videos and kind of put it together and make it seem like they're there. And I was like, wow, whatever. Is what it is. And some of them have 1 million views, and that's
mind blowing. So for the viewer who's like, okay, I need to figure out my travel plans.
Yeah.
Tell them how to use your tools, your website, what to do, what the best way them is to figure out their unique, exotic insider vacation.
Well, I'll announce our next product, which is travel guides. And this is kind of the ironic part. I started this because I was like, travel guides are pictures and words, and you really need video to figure out what makes sense. Totally. With that said, we're releasing our first ebook which is a Bali travel guide, and that'll be released next week. But I guess they kind of go together because there are checklists, and I think it helps you narrow it down. And I think one of the things that makes our travel guides a little bit different is that they're curated. It's not like most travel guides are like, here's everything. I mean, I love the Lonely Planet, but hotels, that's absolute crap.
Yeah.
Right. And some of photos, they'll just kind of throw everything at you. And like, so ours is tailored towards who I think our audience is. And I think our audience is, creatives, people, architects, designers, people who are into really good design, maybe musicians. I'm not exactly sure, but it's definitely a kind of a certain subset of people, and I think it's useful to them. So people who kind of have the same sensibilities as I do. And I think if you watch the videos, if you're a fan, you're a fan. If you're not, you're not. If you want to go stay at an all-inclusive hotel with 1,000 people in Jamaica, well, you're not going to be watching our videos anyway. Right. So, but so I think the question was about like, how do people plan a vacation? So you can buy our ebook, but you just go look at the videos. We have for most places we have like, these are the 10 best hotels from our perspective in Bali or St. Lucia or Napa. And we have a video that shows you all 10 in like 7 or 8 minutes. So you can get a quick flavor for what hotel might be of interest to you. And then you can go watch a 10-minute video about that maybe there are 2 that resonated with you. You can go watch video about that. And then we've got videos about what to do in, and what to know as well. And the what to know is kind of, it's like, I don't know how to make that entertaining. It's like, do you need a visa? What's the airport like? And how do you get around and stuff like that? But it's useful information when folks travel. So that's kind of maybe a little bit of investment in a video. But I feel very strongly that watching a video rather than reading a book is both more entertaining and I think a lot more enlightening for folks. Because the picture does tell 1,000 words.
Visual.
Yeah, seeing it is a lot more powerful than reading about it.
I mean, I think what's interesting is, if you're becoming, this trusted source, that to me is becoming, kind of how people are going to be using anything online.
Yeah.
Because as the internet's expanded, and there's so many people on the same type of platform, well, we don't have a shortage of information.
Right.
We've got 1,000 opinions out there. Like we're talking about TripAdvisor, you see 1-star review and then 5-star review. And you're like, what's the difference? These people went there the same time, same place. So, I need to talk to somebody that I can trust.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same with our business, right? I mean, people hear tons of different things about real estate, but they're like, all right, well, what does Maynard think? Because I trust what Maynard thinks, right? So
thank you.
I trust what you think.
I do too.
Yeah. Maynard, you're great. So
People like you.
But I think that it's a really smart, way to do it, right? You're not just collecting 1,000 voices and posting them, because anybody can go see the picture of the front of the hotel and then the picture of the pool and then one paragraph. That's not going to give you a ton of information.
Totally.
Like what you're doing is a deep dive to like, this is what your experience will be like.
Yep.
Well,
I think it's great.
It's like-minded people, and if someone's looking for Swank, they know where to go, and they know they're gonna get it when they're looking at your reviews.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think we do say on our website, our goal is to be the most trusted resource for boutique hotels. And we're not trying to be everything to everybody. We're just trying to be for people who like cool boutique hotels, design hotels, Airbnbs that are unique and different. And that's.
And I think what's cool is Swank doesn't mean, $2,000 a night.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, right? It doesn't mean.
I think it connotates that, but it's not. Yeah. So it's a little bit misleading, maybe. I don't know. Should we look it up? No, let's not. But it does have it does sound fancy, right? But it's like, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's, I said it in the video, but it's worth repeating that it may be my greatest joy in the work that I do is finding that $200 a night hotel that's better than the $1,000 a night hotel, and they exist, and they're super hard to find, but they're out there. And it's like, there was one in Tulum, and I was just emailing with the owner this morning, and because we had a little bit of a mistake about something, but anyway, we're clearing that up. I shouldn't say that. But
Just a little mistake.
It's tiny. It's something. Luckily, that's not in the video. It's in the description that you can fix after you've published a video. But it was maybe my favorite place in Tulum, and it was like $200 a night. And they are like, they're not. And part of the problem was that they're not on TripAdvisor, they're not on Expedia, they're not on Booking.com, so they're hard to find.
Wow.
And that's part of their appreciation is we're helping people kind of find that place, and it's super cool. But it just goes to it just proves the point. And it's like every place I've gone, I found at least one, if not two places like that are just like just these hidden gems that most people don't know about. And that's like maybe the most important thing that we do is help people find those kinds of places. And hopefully we're helping the owners. Typically the owners of those kind of places are doing something special and unique. Often they're kind of places where local artists are featured and things like that. So there's often some kind of unique creative bend to those kind of places that tend to, maybe the owners are not super commercial. Maybe that's like this hotel is, they don't really understand. Maybe they should be on some other, websites to promote they run a fantastic hotel. And if that's what they're good at, that's great. And I'm really glad to kind of help people discover that.
That's cool. Which hotel is that?
It's the Treehouse.
The Treehouse.
Yeah. And there's a couple, so be careful because there's a couple, in the best thing to do, and this is it's actually a company that's got like 2 or 3 hotels in the world, and it's called Slowness, SLOWNESS.com, I think. But it's the Tulum Treehouse, but it's run by, the name of the company is Slowness.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So that's who they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. What would you say if somebody wants to just, what are like the top 3 lessons you learned, or I don't know if it's 3, but just a takeaway for somebody looking to start something like you did?
Oh, like just start like entrepreneurship advice.
Yeah. Whether it's specific to maybe this and YouTube and growing your YouTube channel or just in general.
I mean, I mentioned a couple of them. It's like, so much I think about being an entrepreneur is it can't be taught. And I know there are entrepreneurship courses out there and people teaching it. Mm-hmm. I suspect it can't be taught. Maybe I'm wrong about that. So I think it's
being naive earlier.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's like, how do you teach people to be naive? So, I mean, I think that's definitely, I think it's kind of naivete / optimism, I think is like a really important trait for an entrepreneur. Like you have to be the kind of person who does not give up easily. You're like, yes, because like I said, it's never what you think it's going to be. It's always harder than you think. And there are so many things that no matter how much research you do, you don't know until you get into it. So you got to be fairly resilient and keep knocking those things down. I don't know if there's a number 3. We were watching Ted Lasso last night. There was supposed to be 4. I'll come
2
back.
2 is good. 2 is great. Yeah. I mean, even in our business, right? We are all entrepreneurs. We're independent contractors. You get into real estate. It's not like, hey, here are 10 clients for you to work with. Yeah. Right. So you got to be resilient in our business as well. And you don't get success immediately when you walk through the door.
Yeah.
You get longer you're in the game, and you put in the consistent work, the more likely success is going to come your way.
Yeah. And I hesitate to give YouTube advice because I don't think we're successful enough on YouTube yet. I think we'll get there, but I could use some YouTube advice. So if there's somebody out there that wants to,
let me know. Here, collaborate with the Swank Guide. And yeah, that's great. I think there's a lot of collaborations I see right now with, maybe somebody who has a bigger channel and to help cross promote. Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, I think part of the YouTube game is like when you're small, it's really hard because people don't want to give you the time of day until you get to a certain size, right? So it's like, once you get to a certain size, everything opens up and it gets a lot easier. But it's the beginning is always the hardest part.
Okay, well, cool. We spent a good amount of time on the Swank Guide, swankguide.com.
That's right.
The Swank Guide and all that. So
swankguide.com.
You guys know where to go to get real travel advice. That's not TripAdvisory. I can tell you if I go to TripAdvisor in Seattle, the top 10 restaurants are not in my top 10. Sorry, top 10 TripAdvisor restaurants. Don't ban me. But I'd love to spend some time talking about Node, right? We're talking about the change in, I guess, modular building, if for a very generic word, and how that's going to kind of change the game, and how you see that, I guess, just impacting building in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think the undeniable thing about building, development, construction is that we don't have enough trades. And maybe that's the biggest bottleneck, and one of the reasons we just don't. There's a lot of different things that go into zoning, not in my backyardism. There's lots of reasons. There's a lot of things that slow down, like different. Should I talk about building codes? And why does every county have its own building code?
What about 104.7? Let's talk about that one.
But setting all those kind of things aside, one of the biggest problems to kind of new construction and the cost of construction, and one of the reasons it's not affordable, is because there's just not enough labor. And the trades are
plumbers, electricians, framers, right?
Fewer and fewer, and they're getting older and older. So there's a lot of young people aren't getting into the trades, and I think that's a combination of probably some sociological factors, but also the fact that, like, in this country, we don't value training. We value college, and we don't value anything else. And there are people should be trained in the trades, but maybe I'm getting off point there. But there's just not enough. There's just not enough of those types of people, and that's kind of the problem that Green Canopy Node is aiming to solve. Is how do we make it a lot simpler? That you can't just, it's not IKEA. You can't just show up and put one of these things together. But why do you have to be a plumber or electrician or a carpenter to put a house together, if in fact the plumbing can kind of all snap together, or if everything comes pre-cut, pre-wired, pre-plumbed, that it becomes a very simple installation process. You might need a crane, and you're going to have to be trained on a system, but you can get trained pretty quickly, and you can do everything, right? And just like if you think about like how Toyota kind of revolutionized manufacturing. If you go back to Detroit 30 years ago, everybody had a job in the factory. I put in windshields, you put on tires, right? You go to a Toyota factory, everybody can do every job in that factory. And it should be the same thing in housing. So why don't we can mass produce housing, and it could be good quality housing. In fact, it can be better quality housing. I think, people think about prefab and they think about manufactured housing. And so, that's because it's been zoned out of so many areas. Manufactured housing got pushed into places where governments didn't want people, and then it ended up being really low cost, cheap stuff, because that's all people could afford. But manufactured housing, in fact, can be much higher quality than even like traditional stick-built housing. Because if you built a car by you hired a bunch of different people to put the car together, it wouldn't look very nice, I don't think, at the end of the day, right? So why don't we can apply those same kind of principles to housing as well. And if you look at, I don't even know what the stats are anymore, but like Scandinavia is well over 50% in terms of prefab.
Wow.
And you don't think of like, oh, I'm going to go to Scandinavia and the housing's going to suck. In fact, it's better.
Yeah, you feel the design. It's just Scandinavian design that you see implemented in coffee shops or wherever. You're like, oh, that's nice. That feels good.
Yeah, and Japan and Germany are moving that way. Is it surprising that, two countries that are really good at making things are moving in that direction as well? I think Germany is like 30%, and Japan's coming up too in terms of like prefab housing. So I think it's inevitable, and I think there's been a lot of kind of structural reasons that hasn't taken off in the U.S. But I think now is the time. I really do, because of the shortages, but also driven by the labor shortages more than anything. But also just the absolute lack of kind of new construction versus demand, which you guys, I'm sure, see all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of your earlier projects, right, were dadus, right? You're testing out dadus, and now there's a huge push right now to have dadus. So, I mean, if someone was interested in building a dadu, where's Green Canopy Node fit into this? I know they are, single family home builders themselves. Yep.
So, I mean, the marriage of the companies was Green Canopy was really good at doing kind of infill city development, more townhouses, small apartments, and Node was focused more on just because we were trying to get out of kind of the R&D cycle into actually building things. And like a backyard cottage was kind of the simplest thing you could do, right? So that's why we started there. But we've moved now the technology and kind of our product more aimed at developers doing townhouses and small apartment buildings. With that said, there is a kind of ADU product in the works, but it's not for sale yet. And I'm on the board. I'm not in day-to-day management, so I'm kind of like, how much should I say right now? But there is a product that that is in development in terms of ADUs, but you can't call up anybody and buy it right now.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, the one thing that to go along with reducing housing costs, reducing the issues with labor shortages and whatever else, 3D housing, 3D printed housing is something that I've been reading more about recently, and I'm not an expert at it by any stretch of the imagination. But do you have much to kind of share in terms of insight in that world? Yeah,
I mean, I've seen some of it, and we Node was, and Green Canopy knows, is a venture-backed company. So we're talking to venture firms. They're always looking at different technologies, and like 3D printing was hot, right? Just like kind of AI is today, but I don't know where 3D printing is right now. My hot take on 3D printing for houses is it is a very partial solution, because what you're doing is you're basically using a 3D printer, which, like, for people who don't know, it's like you're just kind of squeezing like cement-like products through a tube, and a machine's kind of just laying it out. But what you're essentially doing is building the walls. Okay. But if framing is 10-20% of the project cost, what about the other 80%? Who's going to put the roof on it? Where the cost in housing is electrical, plumbing, the finishes.
Once again, the trades.
All
right?
of the trades, right? And I am not aware of any technology that's 3D printing wiring or plumbing, or they haven't figured that out to my knowledge. I'm not as up to it. I was very up on it a couple of years ago, so maybe there's some new things out there, but to my knowledge, it's mostly kind of the walls and maybe the roof, but you still got to build the other 80% of the house, and that's where most of the cost is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you see this, it's already grown, right? Like just the scope of what you've been able to do with this company. Do you see this going into, okay, I've got vacant land, I want to buy a node house. Can I pick a model? How does that work?
Yeah, no. I wish you could, and maybe that was our model a few years ago, but now that with the Green Canopy node model right now is to work with developers.
Got it.
So that's who we're selling to, because then we can sell 50 or 100 units at a time, and dealing with individual homeowners. I did that for a minute,
right?
As part of, it's like when you're running a startup, you wear 7 hats, and that was one of my hats I was wearing a few years back. It's a lot of people. It's a very long sales cycle, and a lot of people who will take up a lot of your time. And I'm sure, as in the real estate game, you guys have had clients who take up a lot of your time and never do anything.
What that's like at all.
So it was a little bit of that.
Am I on speed dial? Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4.
Right. We want to talk about a light fixture again today. Okay. That makes sense, though. So when you're able to work with like a developer builder, you're able to come with an agreement, and now we've got 10 of them.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's the plan, and do bigger and bigger projects. I think we're executing one out on Bainbridge Island right now, which, don't quote me, but 20, 30 units.
Wow.
And I know we've got 100 unit projects in the pipeline, and so aiming for bigger, and that's part of the scale. Mm-hmm. But now that the product is catching up with the development, we can actually it was hard to do 100 unit projects before, but now that we've got the product behind it, then it's much easier, because it's going to be much faster construction cycles. We're not as constrained by the trades anymore. The product's still in development, but a lot of the parts and pieces have been figured out. So our construction has gotten a lot easier, because a lot of things get done in the factory now,
right?
Rather than being done in the field. And that will continue to develop, where, I'm a little bit like, I don't talk to investors every day, but, I would hope that we would get to like for 8-week build times.
Wow.
I don't know how far off that is. I don't even know if it's possible, but that should be the goal. I don't see why you couldn't do something like that.
Did you feel any resistance to when you're talking to a developer that maybe had been going through more of a traditional build cycle to say, okay, this is how we do it here? And, did they have questions about, if you could execute or quality or anything like that? Because like you said, when people think of a manufactured home, they think of something at typically a lower quality.
For sure. Yeah. No, that's been issues. I think that has been an issue. And like I said, I haven't run sales in a couple of years. Mm-hmm. So a guy named Sam Lyde runs our sales, and he's great at it. And he talks to developers every day. So I think I think Green Canopy came, one of the reasons that it was interesting to merge with them is because they had a good reputation already with builders and good quality, and they always executed. So I think that was a big help for, to kind of get the product accepted into the market. But I think where we're getting the most traction is with builders who are seriously interested in doing something more sustainable, and understand that this is kind of the lowest cost way to get to a super sustainable kind of building. So it's people with, I think, a little bit more vision on what they want to do. And eventually that will all, if we step back for a second, kind of the whole thesis behind the company was how do you make carbon neutral, carbon negative, carbon super sustainable housing kind of affordable and ubiquitous, right? And the only way to get there is through some kind of manufacturing process. Because if you're going to stick build it, it's never going to happen. So that's the path that we're on. And if it's kind of natural then that we would get the most traction with developers who are interested in doing something more sustainable.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, we're definitely going to get there at some point, right? Look at the trend that's happened with electric cars and emissions and requirement for all cars here in Seattle to be electrical by 2020 something.
Yeah.
Is that
and
correct?
There was just a story in the Times yesterday about, I think Norway is already new car sales is already 70%, 80% electric.
Wow.
And by 2025, they're going to be 100%. All new cars will be electric. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you point to, right? Other companies that are leading edge in sustainability. Yeah. I remember when Green Canopy, for first earlier years in real estate, I'm like, what is net zero carbon, or zero carbon footprint? I'm like, that's pretty cool, right? And it talked about all these green features, and then we, all these other townhome builders were like, this is 4-star built green, 5-star built green. It's interesting. I don't see that kind of marketed or advertised as much anymore currently. Not sure why. But
I think it's an expectation though now. I think most consumers are, the majority of the new construction townhouses that we look at, they're so airtight now that, there's no air going in and out unless, of course, it's being forced for a reason. But I think it's just an expectation in the marketplace.
Right. And code. I mean, what you're talking about is code has gotten really strict in Seattle and Portland where we build, and less so in other places. And but I think a lot of it's code. But I think you're right. I mean, I think I don't know. I mean, are consumers demanding that? It's an interesting question. I don't know.
I don't know if they're demanding it. I think they
expect
it's just kind of there, right? I don't get too many questions about, hey, what's the carbon footprint? Is this a green home? I just remember it used to be more of a marketing hook. But I think you're right. It's, as far as code goes, it's just build it that way. That's what's required.
And it goes back to how we were thinking about the only way to get super sustainable and carbon neutral, carbon negative. I don't know, but let's just say much more sustainable than what we've got today is you got to make it as cheap as kind of whatever the competition out there. Don't expect anybody to pay a green premium because those people can't afford, or either they can't afford it or they kind of don't care. Right. So you got to make the product better.
That's no different.
And that's what we have to do.
No different than electric vehicles too. Right. I mean, most people aren't willing to pay that premium.
Tesla owner.
Yeah. I mean, but when you're talking about the quality of the vehicle, I mean, the experience, driving experience is every bit, if not better than any gas powered vehicle.
Better for sure.
For sure.
I would never drive a gas after having a Tesla. Never.
I'm in the same boat.
No way.
Yeah. But maybe that'll be the sake with green canopy. No,
gas guzzling Porsches.
I was like, I'm going to get my own.
I'm 100% no offset.
No, we're not judging.
Carbon emissions.
No, but I think it's a great point, right? Because like, when we're talking about real estate, yes, I think if, just as the electric car technology is, there's more affordable options always coming out. Like I think like the Nissan Leaf is one of the least expensive, right? Yeah. Well, that obviously wasn't the first mover in that space, right? Higher end homes, if you've got, a healthy budget, Seattle, maybe that's over $2.5 million, something like that. Maybe then you can be selective about, okay, well, if I've got two products here, I'll take the green one, right? Yeah. Other people, they're just like, man, I just need to get a house,
totally.
Right? So I think that's where, it will come there. But I think, in Seattle, especially, like people, if you gave them the option, say, hey, this doesn't cost anything more. Yeah. What would you prefer? They go, great. I can tell my neighbors I've got a, like carbon neutral house and I've got solar panels or whatever. Yeah. So I think people want it. It's just about when that trade-off becomes
totally. And the thing we haven't talked about is cost of ownership as well. So once you've gotten into it, like a super sustainable house should be, your cost of electricity, your utility bill should be considerably lower. So and that's something we probably could spend a little bit more time talking about in marketing. I don't know if we do or not, to be honest with you, because I'm not involved with the day-to-day anymore.
All right. Well, that was a pretty awesome show, going from travel to YouTubing to future building, green building. Lots of great topics we've covered today. As we wrap it up, as you guys are thinking about all the audience there thinking about like where to travel, let's just quickly go around and say, all right, favorite place to travel, Don.
Favorite place to travel. That is so hard because I don't know how many countries I've been
Top
to.
three.
Okay. Sri Lanka, which is something people wouldn't think about. God, I've been to Bali 5 times. Bali is one of my all-time favorite places. Japan. Yeah, I love Japan.
Yeah.
France.
Also different, right?
You said 4 earlier.
I did,
it's 4. I'm going to throw France in there too.
Love it. How about you guys?
Favorite place I've ever been is Barcelona. Yeah. So Spain, fantastic. Italy, Washington Coast. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean the Pacific Northwest, absolutely beautiful.
Mine's lame.
Is it
my Phoenix Airbnb?
There we go.
Is that a plug or?
That's
no, it's not a plug.
What's the website for that?
There's some availability. What is
Palm Casa Phoenix?
Yeah, there you go. Palm Casa Phoenix, right? Palm Casa Phoenix. I mean, I love Tokyo. That was a phenomenal experience. But for warm weather, for like quick bang for the buck, I have a great time every time, and I feel good about it. There's so many great places in Mexico to go to.
Totally.
So
I love Mexico.
Yeah, easy direct flights. One place I haven't gone yet is Mexico City, so that is high on my list.
Well, I'm going to plug it because we just were in Zihuatanejo and a little surfing town up the coast called Troncones. Oh my God, I loved it. So yeah, Mexico it's like so affordable. Food's good. The people are nice. Beautiful beaches. Yeah. For the Pacific Northwest, it's probably one of the best destinations for sure. I agree with you.
Yeah. Cool. Well, all right, guys. Let's remind everybody where to find you, Don.
Just go to SWANKGUIDE, swankguide.com, or go onto YouTube and type those same words, and you will find us right away.
Awesome. Well, all right, everybody. That was a fantastic show. Looking forward to catching you guys on the next one. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.